Okay, everyone. Welcome to this final video in this series of videos about sharing risks and rewards in the supply chain between retailers and suppliers. We looked at two types of contracts. We looked at buyback contracts and revenue sharing contracts. Now let's look at the final kind of contract, the most complex one in this list. So quantity flexibility contract, right? So it says that a buyer can modify the order that they place within limits after actually observing demand. Now, this is better for matching supply and demand closer, and it increases overall supply chain profits if supplier has some flexible capacity, right? So this leads to lower level of information distortion compared to buyback contracts or revenue sharing contracts because both the supplier and retailer have some flexibility in this situation. Right? So how does this work? Let's say that the retailer orders some units, let's call it O. So manufacturer commits to supplying anywhere between a number that's slightly more than O and a number that's slightly less than O. What this means is that the retailer comes up with a certain number. Let's say that they say we are going to order 1,000 units. The manufacturer says fine, as long as the final order that you place is between, say, if alpha is say 0. Is say half 5% and beta is also 5%. This comes out to say 1,050 items and 950 items. So essentially the supplier is saying that as long as the final order quantity is between 950 and 1,050, they will supply the exact amount that the retailer needs, which means that the retailer can now match demand and supply better. If their demand is only, say, 960, they don't have to order 1,000 items. If their demand turns out to be 1,040, then they can get the extra 40 items instead of just having the 1,000 item. Now, if their demand turns out to be 900, which is less than the lower limit that the retailer commits to, then they still have to take the lower limit. So if the lower limit is 950, then the retailer still has to buy 950 items from the supplier, but they don't have to buy 1,000 units, right? So they only buy 950 units. So this flexibility is better for both the retailer and the manufacturer when you look at it in terms of cost, right? So retailer can purchase any number between small q and capital Q, right? If that's the case, then you can calculate using this formula the expected quantity purchased by the retailer and the expected quantity sold by the retailer. So we can calculate these two numbers. That will give us the expected overstock at the retailer, quantity overstock at the manufacturer, then the expected retailer's profit and the manufacturer's profit, right? So we can calculate all of those numbers. And we'll do that using this example, for example. So in this case, we are saying that the cost for the retailer, so it's the same example we've been looking at. Let's say that the cost for the retailer is $1. They sell it to the, cost for the manufacturer is $1. They sell it to the retailer at $5 and the sales price is $10 for the book. Now let's assume that alpha is 5% and beta is 0.5%. Okay. And we'll assume that both the retailer and the manufacturer do not have any salvage values. Both the salvage values are 0. Now, if alpha is 5% and beta is 0.5%, then now the optimal order quantity, how was this calculated? Well, we can calculate that, right? So we know how to calculate optimal order quantity given the sales price and the cost. Given these two numbers, we can calculate the optimal order quantity. It will turn out to be 1,017 items. So you're saying that the manufacturer is ready to provide 5% more than this, which is 1,068 item, or 0.5% less than this, which is 966 units. So as long as the order that the retailer places between 966 books and 1,068 books, the manufacturer will be able to supply that number, right? Okay, so then we can calculate the expected quantity purchased by the retailer, which will be 1,015 units. The expected quantity actually sold by the retailer will be 911 units, so the expected overstock will be 104 units. Then we can calculate the expected profit for the retailer, the expected profit for the manufacturer, and we can calculate the total supply chain profit, right? So you'll notice that both the retailer and the manufacturer again will make more money than if there is no coordination, right? Okay, so With this, let's put these formulas into Excel and see how these numbers work out, right? So how to actually put these values into Excel. So I'm going to do the same thing. Just going to create a copy. Call this quantity flexibility. Right? So it's quantity flexibility contract again. So I'm going to get rid of that for the time being. We'll come back to this later. Right. So we have manufacturer's cost, sales price. This will be retailer's salvage. And then we'll have manufacturer's salvage. Right. So we need that number. I'm gonna insert a row here. Right. So this is also $0. So right now we know that this is also $0. So these numbers don't change. Manufacturer's cost is $1. Wholesale cost is $5. Sales price is $10. Right now, with this we can calculate the unit cost of overstocking and the unit cost of understocking and all of that. So let's get to that. So we are assuming here that the optimal the order quantity is 1017. That is given to us. If the optimal order quantity 1017 was not given to us, what we would do is we'd calculate the optimal order quantity, which in this case, given that we'd have a 50% cycle service level, would be 1000. So assuming that it is 1000, then it'll be 5% more and 5% less than 1000. Actually, that is a mistake. I think that is also 5%. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't change that. That should also be 5% and not 0.5%. So it's oops. Okay, I think I messed that up. So 5% more and 5% less than 1117. Again, where did the number 1117 come from? 1017 is given to you. We were told that the order quantity is 1017, but that might not be the case. If you just calculate the optimal order quantity without any other information included in it, you'll notice that the optimal order quantity will be 1000, and you can use 5% more than 1000, 5% less than 1000. The numbers will be different, obviously, but if no data is given about the optimal order quantity, you can actually calculate. Right? Okay, so with that, you can calculate all the different numbers. So here, I'm going to go here. So instead of saying optimal order quantity, so instead of saying O star here, I'm just going to say, oh, this is the order quantity, right? So I'm just going to get rid of that. And we can say order quantity is 1000. No, not 1000, 1070. Right? Now, with this, we can calculate, we have to calculate a few things. So let me insert a few rows here. Let's calculate lowercase q and uppercase q, right? So lowercase q will be 1 plus, you know what, let's include alpha and beta. Right? So with that, we can calculate lower and uppercase q's here. Right? So alpha beta is 5%, 5%, right? So this will be 1 minus beta times the order quantity. This will be 1 plus alpha times the order quantity. Again, I'm just going to get rid of the decimal places. Right, between 966 and 1068. Right now, once we have lowercase q and capital Q, we have to now calculate other numbers. So we will calculate the next number that we're going to calculate is QR. So QR is the actual number of items that are purchased by the retailer, right? So we can calculate the value of QR, and we can calculate the value of QR using this formula right here, right? So let's do that. So lowercase q times capital F of Q. So that's dot test Q mean is 1000, standard deviation is 300, and cumulative is yes, because that is uppercase Q. So that's the first portion, plus capital Q times 1 minus norm dist right of capital Q mean, standard deviation, and 1 again, because it's again and then let's close parenthesis for the 1 minus, right? So that's the second portion, plus, right? Let's do the third portion, which is mean times a really large number. So mean is 1000, right? Times. Now we're going to get a large thing in the parenthesis. So that's the large thing in the parenthesis. So if you notice, it's capital F with a subscript S, right? So subscript S is standard. So let's do that. So this portion here, it has two things in it. So first one is norm dot S dot dist. Again, why S? Because it's a standard normal distribution. And the standard normal distribution you're saying is capital Q minus mu over sigma. So that'll be capital Q minus mu divided by standard deviation, right? And yes, we are doing cumulative because it's all capital right now. Right? So that's the first part, minus again norm dot S dot dist Q minus lowercase q minus mu divided by standard deviation, comma 1, right? So that's this second portion here. Again, it's cumulative. Now we'll do the third portion, right? Let's see if the formula is right so far. Okay. There you go. So far, so good. Right, minus standard deviation times, again there's going to be a big parenthesis, it's the same, you know what, let's do some cheating, not cheating, just creative copying. We'll do minus, instead of standard deviation, this should be standard deviation, that's B3. It's a standard deviation. Yeah, something was weird. Okay. Right, so it's standard deviation. So this time, instead of, it's just going to be comma 0 here and comma 0 here. That's it. That's the only difference. $1,050, right? So that's the value of QR, right? So we can calculate DR similarly. Right? Let's calculate DR. That's the formula for DR. So let's put that in. I just sped ahead because I didn't want to spend more time showing you how to type in the formulas. You all already know that. So I typed in the formula. Now the number turns out to be slightly different from what we got here in the textbook. The textbook says 911. It's 909. Again, it's all rounding errors here and there. So don't worry too much about it. So that's how much you have. That's the value of QR. Next, you get the value of DR. Then you get the expected overstock at the retailer. Expected overstock. Which is the difference between these two numbers. That's how much extra they have, right? Once you have that, you can calculate the expected retailer profit. Again, these numbers are going to be different for us because rounding issues, right? Expected retailer profit, this will be, this is how many units you expect to sell. So this is how many units the retailer will purchase, but this is how much they'll expect to sell, right? So this is how much they sell, and they're going to sell it at the sales price, which is $10, right? So that's how much money they make, right? Plus salvage, if they're salvaging anything. So they have a salvage value. Right? So any overstock that they had. So this difference between QR and DR, difference between QR and DR, this difference times the retailer's salvage. Now in this case, the retailer's salvage is 0. So it's not going to matter in this case, but in case the retailer has a salvage value, that's how much money they make from salvage. This is how much the money they make from selling. This is the salvage minus the cost. Now they are only selling 909 units, but they are buying 1015 units, right? So they have to pay for the 1015 units. So there'll be 1015 units times the cost. That's the wholesale cost that they incur, right? There you go. 4015, like I said, will be slightly different from what they got. So they got 4038. We got 4015, but still more than what the retailer was making before, right? All right. Now expected manufacturer profit. Right. So expected manufacturer profit, that will be, so the manufacturer is selling 1015 items to the retailer. There are no buybacks or anything here. That's how many items they're selling. They're selling it at $5 a piece. So that's how much revenue that they make, right? For the manufacturer. Now, and now, because the maximum value that the manufacturer, so the manufacturer expected to send them 1068 units, right? But they only ordered 1015 units. So the manufacturer had 1068 units ready. So this difference is the overstock at the manufacturer. So they expect, when you say expected overstock, we will we'll say that there's expected overstock at the retailer is 106. There's also expected overstock at the manufacturer, and the expected overstock at the manufacturer is they expected to sell up to 1068 units, right? So they had 1068 units ready, but they only sold 1015 units. So this difference is the overstock at the manufacturer. And if we were able to salvage some money from this, we are not in this case, but in this case, in case you are, manufacturer's salvage value, so times the manufacturer's salvage value, minus the cost for the manufacturers. The cost for the manufacturers, they're manufacturing 1068 units, they're manufacturing that at $1 a piece, right? And there you go. And their profit is 4,005. Again, it's slightly different. They got 4,007, I got 4,005. So total profit for the, get rid of all of this. The total supply chain profit is the sum of these two numbers. 8,021, right? So again, 8,021 is definitely more than what you saw with no coordination. Definitely less than vertical integration, but definitely making more money, right? Okay, so this video is already too long, so I'm going to stop it here. And these are the quantity flexibility contracts. So the one important thing to remember in the quantity flexibility contract is that we were given the value of 1017 in this case, but that might not always be the case. If that's not the case, then what you do is you do it the usual way. You calculate the cycle service level, then you calculate the optimal order quantity. In this case, optimal order quantity would have been, I guess, B14 is right, so there should be B2 and B3. This will be CU divided by CU plus CU. Right? Optimal order quantity will be 1000. Now, in this case, it is given to us that it is 1017, right? So if it is only 1000, then the lower value Q low will be 950, capital Q will be 150, QR and DR values will be different, expected overstock, all of those numbers will be different, right? So, but we are told that the order quantity that we are looking at is 1017 and not 1000, right? And that's where we get all the numbers. So we'll say expected overstock at retailer, and we can say expected overstock at manufacturer. Expected overstock at manufacturer. This will be they have 1068 units ready, but they're only selling 1015 units. So that's the expected. There you go. All right. Okay, I'm going to end this video here. And these were all the different types of contracts: the buyback contracts, revenue sharing contracts, and quantity flexibility contracts. All right. Take care.